Hey, how's it going everybody? It's Tanner here and welcome back to a new Ninjago video here on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing exactly how old the ninja are in terms of a relative theory as opposed to an actual exact amount. Because again, trying to get an exact number is pretty much impossible with all of the inconsistencies within the Ninjago timeline. The actual ages of the ninja have not been revealed as well, so of course that doesn't really help. But this video is pretty much a theory all on my part. Nothing is confirmed in this video except for when I say that things are confirmed, and just in general we will be taking, I guess, inspiration from every corner of Ninjago to try to figure out how old these characters are. Now of course I've done videos like this before if you guys have followed the channel for a long time, but each time I went ahead and did a video like that, it was a little different and a little bit, I guess, constructed a little differently as well. Inspiration was taken from different sources, and in this video we're taking inspiration from pretty much every corner. And to go ahead and explain how old these characters are, or at least how old they are in my eyes, I've went ahead and divided all of the Ninjago seasons into 4 distinct eras, if you will. So the first era is going to be the pilot season, season 1 and 2. That's it for the first era. The second era is going to be Ninjago seasons 3 through 7, including everything from 3 to 7, including Day of the Departed. Just all that's going to be in there. Then the third era is season 8, 9, and 10. And finally, the fourth era is season 11 up until the modern day. So naturally, what do these eras have to do with the ninjas' ages? Well, I figured that each one of those, I guess, little eras would represent a certain, I guess, timeline, if you will. Each one of these eras, I would say, each happened within the span of a year. So example, the pilot season, season 1 and 2, all of that would happen within a year span. Of course, nothing is confirmed except for the year-long time skip in between seasons 7 and 8, so naturally this makes a fair bit of sense. And of course, again, nothing is exact, and this theory isn't exactly perfect, but I just figured I'd go ahead and clarify that right off the bat. In terms of an actual climate for Ninjago, this kind of backs up that idea as well, because in Ninjago, of course, there's not really a distinct, I guess, climate for the series in terms of the landscape. If you go ahead and pay attention to Ninjago, it doesn't really follow these specific seasonal patterns that our real world does. So Ninjago, in terms of a seasonal pattern, it really doesn't exist. Therefore, it most likely will not be affecting this theory. And again, this theory isn't perfect. And again, the whole time gap stuff, the time skip, all of that really isn't perfect, because I don't feel like there's a perfect way to go ahead and actually replicate this. So I think I clarified what I need to clarify, and I apologize for the overly long intro, but let's go ahead and get started with talking about Lloyd. We'll go through each ninja individually, and Lloyd is kind of an interesting case right off the bat. So in the pilot season, he just does not exist. Lloyd is not in the pilot season at all, but he is introduced in season 1. I recently did a video talking about how old Harumi could be, and in that video I mentioned that Lloyd, when he started out, was most likely around 10 years old. That is a pretty good estimate in my opinion. He was 10 when the ninja first found him, and when he first started training to become the Green Ninja. But of course, in season 2, he was aged up, and I believe he was aged up to around the same age as the other ninja. However, that's not exact. So I have a feeling, like I said in that video, that Lloyd was aged up to be around 14. And this kind of does go hand in hand with the idea that Lloyd is 16 by the time season 8 rolls around, because that just so happens to line up with the Lego Ninjago movie. Could be confirmed, could not be confirmed, but considering we have a number, that's what I'm going to be going off of. Therefore, if Lloyd is 14 in the first era, by the time Lloyd moves into the second era, which is of course seasons 3 through 7, he would be around 15 years old, starting from season 3 all the way until the end of Hands of Time. That time span, at least in my opinion, could very well have taken about a year to complete, so I don't feel like this is so far-fetched. Now we take a year-long time skip in between seasons 7 and 8, and Lloyd at the start of Sons of Garmadon is around 16 years old. That would make the most amount of sense to me, and it would again line up with what was said in the Lego Ninjago movie. And finally, in season 11, we're going to go ahead and age him up another year, so in season 11, 12, and even 13 to an extent, I believe that Lloyd is around 17 years old. At least that makes the most sense to me. Again, this is not confirmed, and some of these characters I'm just going to be, I guess, making stuff up as we go along, but then again, that's just what we have to do because there isn't an exact number. Moving on to Kai. So Kai, I kind of feel like has a little bit more information regarding him as well. We do know that he is 3 years older than Nia, as Kai was 3 years old when Nia was born, so that's an actual number that we can work with here. So because of that, I'm going to say that in the first era, Kai is going to be 17 years old. That makes a lot of sense to me. It kind of makes sense that Master Wu would kind of pick him up when he was just 17, and of course that kind of would line up with his job in Season 3. All of the ninja, at least with the exception of Lloyd in Season 3, rebooted, actually had jobs working as teachers. In my opinion, you can't really be a teacher if you're not an adult, so I'm going to go ahead and age Kai up to be 18 years old in the third era. That would make him 18 all the way from Season 3 until Season 7, and then following the year-long time skip in between Season 7 and 8, Kai would now be 19 years old by the time Season 8 rolls around. That makes sense. And then finally, in Season 11, in the fourth era, Kai would be 20. So in the current Ninjago timeline, I predict that Kai is 20 years old. Now let's jump over to Jay. With Jay, it's going to be very similar to Kai because I always imagined Kai and Jay to be around the same age. So I'm going to go ahead and say that for Jay in the pilot season, and at least the first and second season, he is going to be 17 years old. Jump forward to the second era, seasons 3 through 7, and he is going to be 18 years old. Then in the third era, seasons 8 through 10, he's going to be 19, and finally in the fourth era, season 11 to the modern day, he will be 20, just like Kai. That one was kind of simple because, again, I imagine that Kai and Jay are around the same age, so that kind of makes sense to me. Next, we jump over to Cole. Now, Cole is another interesting case because Cole was the original leader of the ninja team, and I always figured that Cole was going to be a little older than the rest of the ninja. I always liked the idea that Cole is going to be a year older than Kai and Jay. Of course, Zayn is a little bit of a different case, but we'll get to him here in a little bit. So because of all this, I'm going to go ahead and say that at the time of the pilot season, Cole is 18 years old, at least in the first era of Ninjago. Jump forward to the second era, and Cole is going to be 19. Then in the third era, seasons 8 through 10, he is going to be 20 at the time of Sons of Garmadon starting up. And finally, in season 11, he is going to be 21 years old. I always imagined him to be older just because of his physical strength, and he does kind of have that older mentality as opposed to the other ninja. So in my eyes, Cole will always be the oldest ninja, at least in terms of humanity age, and we'll get to what I mean by that later on. Now let's go ahead and talk about Nia. So Nia and Zayn are the next two that we need to talk about, but we're going to start off with Nia because Nia is, again, kind of an interesting case. As we mentioned, she is 3 years younger than Kai. That's exactly the number that we had there, so naturally when we go ahead and add up the numbers here, in the first era, Nia would be 14 years old. In the second era, she would be 15. In the third era, she would be 16. And then finally, in the fourth era, she would be 17. The only thing that kind of throws me off about that is her relationship with Jay, because you can kind of get, I guess, really nitpicky in there and kind of, I guess, pick apart the timeline and pick apart the actual legal status of relationships. I guess in a way it doesn't matter, but that is the only thing that I kind of wanted to point out as being a little bit of a weird thing in the timeline between Nia and Jay. Now let's talk about Zayn, because Zayn is kind of a really interesting case as well. Zayn, of course, is not human, so how do we go ahead and clarify his age? Well, if you go ahead and actually look at things in Ninjago and kind of piece together the timeline a little bit, or at least try to, we can, I guess, estimate that Zayn was built sometime during the Serpentine War. That at least would make the most sense to me. So naturally, when Master Wu found him, and considering how in the second era it is, I guess, confirmed to be 40 years prior to the Serpentine War, I'm going to go ahead and say that in the first era of Ninjago, Zayn was 39. That would mean in the second era, which would be 40 years after the Serpentine War, he would be 40 years old. In the third era, Zayn would be 41, and finally in the fourth era, Zayn would be 42, up until he went ahead and journeyed into the Neverrealm. Of course, that was not his choice. He just kind of got disintegrated into the realm at the last minute, but time does work differently within the Neverrealm, so naturally Zayn would have been in there for a very long time. Tommy Andreasen, who was of course one of the co-creators of Ninjago, clarified that Zayn had been in the Neverrealm for approximately 60 plus years, so when he finally got out, it would add 60 years onto his life. Considering what we just said about Zayn's age, in my opinion, it's kind of logical to sort of suggest that Zayn would now be adding 60 years onto his previous age, therefore making him 102. So with that being said, I think that'll just about do it. We kind of went through each ninja and kind of gave a little bit of an estimate as to how old they were. Just to recap, at least in current Ninjago, so when you're watching season 14, if something changes, then I'll change it. But as of season 13, Lloyd is 17, Kai is 20, Jay is 20, Cole is 21, Nia is 17, and Zayn is 102. at least according to my own theory. Again, nothing in this video was confirmed in any way. This is just kind of my own little speculative thing about the ninjas' ages, but let me know down below in the comments what you think about this. How old do you think the ninja are? And tell me what you think about this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and check out the links down below in the description for my other forms of social media. As always, big shout out goes out to my Patreon supporters, including once again the marvelous Jan. Thank you guys so much for watching this video once again. My name is TannerFishies, and with that I bid you farewell.